Hi, I'm Rekha Rodwittiya. I'm an artist who lives and works in Baroda, and I'm delighted to be able to share some of my thoughts about my practice within my studio. Um, for many, many years, because I was also a parent by choice, I felt it necessary to have my studio in my home. And so, however tiny my home has been, it's always been a space that has encompassed my studio practice. This allowed me to be able to work long hours because that's something that I really have always needed. My entire day is hinged upon the hours in my studio being the major access to all else that occurs, and my engagement with my family. So these become the sort of north and south pole that hold this axis of my existence. A studio is something very precious to an artist, at least it's been for me. And I think that it's a space where it perhaps allows you to be completely naked in every factor of engagement with oneself. It's a space where perhaps it's the closest equivalent to being like a womb. It kind of sort of is the only space that truly allows you to be nurtured in a manner that sees you growing to a kind of fruition of realization to whatever you are attempting to encapsulate as being the sort of articulation that you want to share. I'm an extremely private individual, and though I have traveled extensively and though I have been somebody who has been very vocal about contemporary Indian art on an international stage for many, many years, way before it was even the trend or where the access was available to many other artists. I have been very fortunate to have worked with major 20th century artists and curators. And it's always been my need to be able to come back to the space that is mine, my studio, and take refuge in order to be able to be re-energized, to hold this yin and yang, to hold this ability to be both the public and the private individual within a responsibility that one holds as an artist, both to the community of artists that we belong to, as well as the fact that one is placing art out there as something that hopefully is significant within the overriding umbrella of what life is for everybody. I'm somebody who operates solely through the representation of a gallery, and I have been extremely fortunate since 1984 to be represented by some of the premier galleries of India. I am now currently associated solely with Sakshi Gallery in Mumbai. And I mention this because it is a choice that I made, which allows me therefore to have an even further privacy that I can maintain about the preciousness of my studio. My studio has had the visitations of many, many friends, but it's a space that I don't wish to open up to an outside world, not because it holds any great secrets, but because it is something that is so solely to do with imprinting who I am to myself, and therefore it's the sanctity of its existence matters greatly to me. I have had my son, Mithun, grow up, in the playgrounds of my studio. I have had my adopted granddaughter Aditi grow up equally. Whilst I have painted the many long hours, I do. And now I have my little Mehran, my Mithun and Samera's son, our grandchild, grow up in the same environment of a grandmother who is able to enjoy the energies of being part of a family and equally being completely engaged with the practice of my art. For those who are familiar with my work deals with a certain territory of ideas that are related to my concerns with gender politics, my concerns of being an individual whose political perceptions or whose political choices are placed within the framework of being a feminist. Why I need to paint as I do is because painting has been something that has held my articulation from a very, very young age. I grew up in the isolation of Air Force bases. My father was a fighter pilot, and there were many instances where we were located quite far away from the cities, and my growing years saw me engaged with an imaginative territory where my engagement with drawing was something that held my attention and became something that allowed me to be able to converse with myself. So I often say that maybe it's because I'm not very good at anything else, that, art became this place where I could find my belonging. I also, know that art has taught me to understand compassion, to hold empathy, and to engage with the world without the prejudices that disallow us to discover through curiosities. So I'm very grateful to hold my consciousness within this territory of being an artist. I'm somebody who loves to travel, who loves to engage with looking at art. I'm somebody who feels that we need to communicate much more than we really do in order to sort of, in some ways, break the overly romanticized ideas related to art. My partner, Surendra Nair, and myself, from perhaps 35 years that we have been together, have hosted something that we call the Collective Studio Baroda, in which we have had many frameworks and platforms of informal teaching, fundraising, seminars, field trips, nurturing and giving and believing and hoping. And I think that I come from the educational platforms of the Baroda College under the tutorage of KG Subramaniam, Nasreen Mohammadi, Jyoti Bhatt, Ghulam Mohammad Sheikh. And I then went and studied in London under the amazing guidance of Peter de Francia, writers and theoreticians like John Golding. And I think that what it obliged me to do was to recognize and to realize that there was something about not seeing the journey of being an artist as being something that was solely to be about independence. I do believe that we belong within a collective environment, and that we learn and we engage on a daily basis from what we imbibe from being people who belong to larger histories and to larger ancestries. And so we, as artists, Surendran and myself, have wanted to always live that factor, and to open our doors, however small the space was and however large the space may be today, to include others, to have this ability to know and to insist of ourselves that whatever learning that we have had and we've been privileged to must also be available to others. So our library is open to those who want to come and read from it, and we are always there to assist other artists. You may wonder why I'm not taking you on a tour of my studio. As I said at the beginning, it's a space that houses me in a way that is extremely private. I'm very tidy. My studio is very tidy. And I often say that it's perhaps because I'm extremely chaotic, maybe, inside my head, that in order to keep my own sanity and to be precise, I have to keep everything around me properly ordered so that I can function correctly. I also believe that the discipline of being an artist is important. We need to recognize that it is, in order to maximize what we have as individuals, we need to be honest with ourselves about what we need to do to be able to put out into the world for others things that hopefully others can find empathy with, others can find connections with. I'm very proud of, it's not a word that many people often endorse these days, but I'm very proud of the journey of contemporary Indian art. There's so many things that artists have put out there today and for so many decades that, and this is both not just about urban artists, but the folk practices, the artisans. We are a country unfortunately divided by politics, and but I think that the practices of art are where we can find this amazing space of belonging, of unity, of compassion, where we can learn and where we can, in some ways, hold our humanness. So with this small space of conversation with all of you, I hope that you have had an entry into my studio, and that I've been able to share something that is of significance with all of you today.